Well, Max, we tried. I've been standing here in front of my computer. Birdie said maybe 8 o'clock today. I've been standing here live, ready to go since 7:30. Uh, we got to get going on this. So we have reports coming out, everything else. XFL merger official. Still waiting on the league's announcement, but I think we have enough to go on here. How are you doing, Max?
I'm doing great, but this whole will we, won't we actually say anything on the record through our actual press releases instead of sending things off to reporters for them to say so that we can say, oh, it didn't happen if we want to, isn't very annoying.
Yeah, we're waiting here. Like I said, supposedly, waiting on official announcement today. We have Ben Fisher, who I trust with my life, and obviously Mike Mitchell reporting things. So I think we have enough to go on here, at least in terms of what we officially know, and then kind of what we're expecting in terms of maybe the league name and team numbers and everything that Mike's reporting. Not official yet. Like I said, I don't think you and I talked. I don't think Mike puts that out unless he's feeling pretty good about it. But we do know that the XFL officially finalized here with, let me get this to the top here, with Ben Fisher reporting that. Is that kind of your leading news here?
I mean, at this point, we don't have a whole lot else other than what Ben and Mike are giving us. And then, I mean, there's that Sportico article, but mostly it's just, oh, the merger. And then there's a bunch of speculation.
Yeah, so Ben reporting here, and let me get this out, because cleared antitrust Monday, I believe. Sportico reported league planning to kick off March 30th. That coincides kind of what I had heard yesterday, kind of leading up into this. So that feels all simpatico at this point. I think we were getting close to a February kind of deadline here of what was happening. And we all know with April. How do you feel about this? I know Anthony Miller was in our chat saying that's the weekend of the Elite Eight NCAA.
I mean, at least we don't have to deal with being up against as many rounds. The only awkward thing would be week one is usually the biggest audience of the whole year until the title game. And you're just sandbagging that during March Madness, which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah, we have this statement here, and this is Sportico had this as well. We are pleased we have completed the antitrust process in connection with the proposed merger of the XFL and USFL. Intend to play a combined season this spring, kicking off Saturday, March 30th. We are now finalizing terms of the definitive agreement, and we'll share more about the new league in the coming weeks. We do know, and then we'll get into this other thing here. But interesting there. I will say I'm glad we had, my mother wanted to go on vacation, my wife, and we had a cruise here planned. Really glad I did kind of plan my February cruise. I said, XFL be damned, regardless, we're going on the cruise. Seems like my gamble paid off.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of knew that they were never going to be able to commit to going to one league's timeline or the other. Everything's got to be some sort of compromise. So, you're going to miss out on some training camp stuff, but
Yeah, so that'll be good. So we have the March 30th here. And then this is the interesting thing to me. And we obviously, if you missed our live stream here, Max and I did last Friday. And just also note, if anything else comes out today or tomorrow, I know Andy Murray standing by here. We can either do something live tomorrow or pre-recorded, depending on his schedule. But we know very little, but we do know this. Per source, XFL CEO Russ Brandon will be the top executive of the new entity. That is interesting to me. What do you make of that? Because I know we talked last week. Who's in the photos? Who's in DC? We did the the JFK film breakdown on that.
it's not a surprise, is it? I mean, if we're after looking at those photos, it's like what we all thought is that there's a lot of XFL people in this photo. There's not a lot of USFL people in this photo. Now, I still think below like the very top guys, you're going to see a lot of people mixing about between the two leagues with employees and stuff. But I mean, there aren't a whole lot of the top executives on the USFL. At least a few of them like also work for Fox. So like, do you need them running this new league when you can just bring over a lot of the XFL's existing executive staff and then let the other people just be the Fox people?
Yeah, this is surprising to me because remember, there's been, rumors circulating here for weeks of, okay, it's XFL reached out and they're doing all this, and that very well be whatever. But my great fear was always, right, XFL being absorbed by the USFL. Okay, we're going to add this to the, the USFL social media interns played, and we're going to work through this stuff. Having Russ Brandon involved, does that give you more credence and hopefulness here in terms of kind of what the league's going to look and feel like?
I mean, I guess it makes me think that there's a greater chance we might have XFL rules, and there's a greater chance that the people from the teams that are sticking around are likely to be on the payroll mostly. Although I have a feeling a lot of these local market employees still might get shafted with what sort of jobs, like pay situation wise, they're being shifted onto, because everything feels like it's all about cutting costs. So I have like a little bit more faith, but not a lot. I really just kind of feel like they need to prove to me why I should believe they're actually going to run a functional football league beyond the actual football.
In terms of, and we'll get to Mike's reporting here in terms of the cities and stuff. But do you feel? I don't know. To me, we've gone back and forth about this, and in the USFL, the look and feel of that, and it's a little more NFL light and Fox, and we kind of know what that's going to look through. In terms of, I don't know, having that XFL flair to it. I mean, is Russ involved? Like, I'm trying to figure out like what is his vision with this, and what is that going to look like?
The vision, I mean, your guess is as good as mine what the vision is at this point. I mean, all we know is that they keep trying to cut costs and merge and whatever, but then they don't actually care about, building a real fan base. So we'll see. Maybe that changes.
So piggybacking off of Ben's, not piggybacking, just adding on to Ben's report here, we have Mike coming out, and this is very similar to what I heard yesterday. The growing sense from the sources with the USFL and XFL is that the new league will be branded as the UFL, the United Football League. We've talked about this, with only eight teams existing in 2024, the remaining markets being put on pause mode. One close source has indicated, did I say that right? One close source has indicated the returning markets for the new merged league will be Arlington, Houston, San Antonio, St. Louis, DC, Birmingham, Michigan, and Memphis. 8 teams. I know that people aren't going to be happy about that. We had talked last week. What is it? I see Mike put this out, kind of what we've heard and what we've expected. I know there was the back and forth with the government, but what do you make of this?
I mean, I don't really care that there's going to be, more teams from one league or the other, because we've like we talked about last week. It's really just down to which league has more stadium deals, right? So, in the event the Houston team is the XFL team and not the USFL team, whatever, that's semantics at this point. Outside of social media following, which we know which one has more, and it's not the USFL one. But anyway, the markets that are being kept, I mean, these are all the ones you really needed, right? I mean, obviously, it would have been nice to keep Seattle, but you're not going to have a team all the way out in an island away from all the rest of the other teams that has a massive, expensive NFL stadium contract that they're putting you like 4th or 5th in the selection order of events behind field to table and whatever.
Well, Lumen costs a ton. I mean, I remember Sam Schwartzine when he would come on to talk about the XFL rules and all of that. I think it was off camera, but telling me kind of the story about how that even came about. I mean, Lumen cost a fortune to run. It wasn't even kind of in the initial plans back in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, although it would have been even wilder if they went to Husky Stadium instead, and they went to an even bigger stadium, and then it looked even more empty this time around. That would have been worse.
I will just say, and I was talking with my wife Dorothy about this last night. I think Seattle is a closed market now for the XFL. Like I don't care, right? Like I don't like, it's cool having a dog in the fight. We covered the USFL and obviously the CFL, and I mean BC is my team, but it's still a 4-hour drive. Like, but to me, this would be very challenging to go back into. Let's say we do put Seattle on hold and 2025, it's like we're coming back to, like I feel like this is a closed burn bridge now. I don't see that
The
happening.
only way they're coming back to Seattle is if the league survives like 5 to 10 years, and then like people actually believe this thing is serious. I think that's the only way they come back to Seattle, and even then I feel like the economic model's kind of busted there, because you have to be, unless you want to be on a college stadium where it's just way too big, you have to go to this NFL stadium, which is really expensive, and that's your only options.
Yeah, we don't have a good, I mean, unless you're going down to Tacoma and playing it, like we have a couple nicer high school stadiums, but there's really just nothing around here that
you can't play in a high school stadium as a pro league. I know we did the minor league baseball embarrassment. We can't do that again, can we? I mean, no, it's unfortunate.
We have a comment here from John Lewis. We'll pull up questions and comments here in a minute. We'll kind of get through the initial news. What was interesting to me about this is we've heard the back and forth. When Mike was, originally on, and we kind of had the first live stream here of the marriage, and now we have the handshake with Houston belonging to the Gamblers, not the Roughnecks. I have heard, and it seems, at least how Mike is listing the cities here, that the Houston team is going to be more aligned with the XFL in terms of team and branding. Thoughts on that? And I know I had tweeted out to Mike, because it's 5 versus 3 here. Interesting breakdown on that. I would think that they would want the 4-4, like you said, just for peace of mind and like we're agreeing to everything. But it's really hard to get rid of the Roughnecks in terms of the Gamblers.
Yeah, I mean, there's not the only logical reason to get rid of the Roughnecks for the Gamblers is so that some like petty USFL executive can like feel like, aha, we forced it to be even. Listen,
yeah.
Nobody should care how many teams are from what league or the other league. The only thing you should care about are how many teams we have in the first place. Yeah. How many stadiums do we have? So I was sick of all that pettiness of, the USFL is going to have more teams. Oh, the XFL is going to have more teams. Oh, whatever. Let's just have a league that works. I'm tired of bickering about who has more teams and whatever.
Well, it's tough too. And I was talking to a couple of players last night, I think players are getting informed and this is all kind of coming out and, people are kind of, okay, what do you know? And this is what we've heard. I know Mark Thompson, who tweets a lot right now, is talking about training camp in Texas, which kind of aligns with what I've heard. Players are heartbroken about this. I mean, if you're a team that's not on this list and you're finding out like, do I have a job tomorrow? Do I know what's going on? Like that to me is the biggest focus on this because these are players that we're told this is business as usual. We're doing all this. And next thing you know, it's kind of like Thanos snap of the finger and half these teams are gone. Like that to me is the biggest shame with this. It's the coaches, it's the players, it's the staff, the ticket sales. Orlando's not on this list. Like, what does that mean for Corey, right? I know some of these people can work remote for the XFL, but if you're if you're a local executive, I don't know what do you do moving on from here? That would be very challenging to me.
Well, if I remember right, Corey in particular is one of those exceptions where he was local and somewhat involved in the national stuff. But in general, yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be layoffs. The one thing that we could see for whoever can work remote on these jobs is that, I mean, the USFL, I don't think the USFL had a very strong ticketing infrastructure from what I remember. So you might see some XFL people who can either move, unlikely, or work remote or work in the hub for the ticketing, do that. And then they fly out again to the ticketing events like they did in 2023, because that's almost over now. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be ideal, is it?
To me, and I don't want to be, I don't know. It's hard not to be critical here, but in terms of like, if you're working for one of these leagues and it feels a little disingenuous and this is why I had said from the beginning, when they came out, we have the merger announcement and people, it's business as usual, USFL announcing free agency and all that stuff. Like if you're someone that's worked for one of these leagues and you're told business as usual, knowing that the XFL is going to the federal government, the USFL, they're going in wanting to cut down the teams, right? They're the ones, right? We had heard the reports that the government wanted more and the USFL and XFL wanted less. Like, to me, it just feels very disingenuous. Like, well, no, stick around. We're going to figure this out, but we're actively kind of campaigning. It's like Survivor. Like we're campaigning to get rid of you while we're also telling you like, no, don't worry, you're safe.
We'll campaign to get rid of you, and then with whatever we're left, we're just going to languish around until we decide we're tired of spending money because we don't actually care about spring football. So
now I got a lot of comments on the last stream saying Max so negative. So let's look at some positives here. Let's look forward. Better working together than apart. I mean, what's the silver lining here for people? I know we got Chris in the chat with the Dragons. Very upset about that. Jose commenting here. Let's go Brahmas. I'll pull up some comments here in a second too.
I mean, we won't have the cannibalizing effect. So there's that. The however many 250,000 people who intersect between the XFL and USFL audience that were pulling away from each other whenever they're airing direct or on the same weekend. So there's that. There's the chance to have a real marketing message for a league that can actually be promoted fully instead of half-baked halftime commercials during some college football games and Monday Night Football games, and now you have the ability to market across Fox and ESPN, which means your reach marketing on the NFL should massively increase. Although you're running out of time, the regular season is not that far away from being over, and you haven't even announced how many teams there's going to be, or the name of the league, or anything other than the kickoff date. I mean, we're 4 months away from kickoff, and there's a lot of things that do not seem put together at all, and I am highly skeptical.
I have Mike's post in our group chat. We have a little bit more breaking news, and then I want to go through the Sportical article as well because there's a couple quotes on that. But Mike sharing this, Russ Brandon's message. Now I guess the president, whatever of the UFL here, Russ Brandon, our Lord and Savior. This was out to league staff today. Team, you may have seen stories or social media posts this morning regarding an update on our potential merger with the USFL. We are pleased to have completed the antitrust review process in connection with the proposed merger and intend to play a combined season this spring, kicking off on Saturday, March 30th. We are now finalizing terms, definitive agreement. Share more. Very similar, right, to the press quote given out to Ben and Sportico, but interesting now to have that be sent out from Russ Brandon here, at least at some point, so people can know what's going on.
It's just funny how the people that I bet the employees found out from Twitter and from reporters before they found out from Russ, because that seems to be something that's happening a lot lately with a lot of these leagues and like sports in general. But with something as much of a magnitude that's changing their employment like this, not having the heads up of like for real, like maybe they got a hint, but not having the official put it down word until 4 months out. Like we are literally 120, maybe give or take 1 or 2 days away from March 30th, and these guys still don't know what their job is. Are they going to keep their job or not? I mean, that's crazy. I mean,
Mark, I was just seeing it. Yeah, how many days until March 30th? 121. We also have a little bit more breaking news. You see, I like doing like this is a good timing coming out here. This is via Pat Ruffino. Pat trying to call me this morning. I'm like, Pat, I'm standing by. I'm getting ready to go live here. This is per Danny Garcia's Instagram, very similar on that. But Danny Garcia putting that out. Let me see, because I had her thing pulled up, and I haven't been refreshing it since we came on here. But Danny getting the word out that way, because obviously, we have it here, because obviously, her Twitter account, her X account is gone. Maybe Danny's like anti Elon Musk and all of that. But here, yes, per Pat and it can corroborate this on here. What do you make of Danny sharing the news this way?
I'm glad there's been an official statement by a league personnel that isn't to a reporter and instead is signed by that league person on their own accounts, their own place. Now it'd be nice if we had that on the league's, social accounts itself, like both of their leagues and their websites. Like, where's the press release? Like, come on, we need more than this. But this is something.
I'm looking on the XFL site, still nothing on there. So we're slowly trying to get the word out here. Does this give you more or less confidence in terms of the communications of these leagues moving forward, how this is rolled out today?
It's hard to say less when you're already at the bottom. I mean, the bar is already, in heck or whatever. I don't want to.
The last thing we have here is the Billy social media impressions for 2023 here. So working through that, but this is good. So we have that with Pat. So Danny's put that out. I don't know if the Rocks put that out. I don't know if that's the most, again, like I shouldn't have to have 18 Google Chrome tabs open to try to figure out like who is sharing information about this. Incredibly, imagine if you're a fan of either of these leagues and you're waking up today and discovering that your team is probably gone.
I mean, and you still don't know that for sure. If you're a Houston Roughnecks fan, there's a Houston team, but like you don't really know whether it's going to be the Roughnecks or the Gamblers yet, do you? So until they say it, so we're all thinking, right? There's so much uncertainty that just doesn't need to be there. And also the coming weeks, does that mean 2 weeks? Does that mean 4 weeks? Does that mean 6 weeks? Like, how long are they going to string? And then there's supposed to be like training camp for this is going to have to be like in February. So, like, if we wait to announce everything until January, I mean, what was there going to be a dispersal draft behind closed doors in a smoke-filled room, and we're not going to find out about it until they announce how many teams? I mean, there's just so many. How is all this supposed to get put together if you're not even going to tell us what's going on for several more weeks? It's just, how am I supposed to believe in this? I just don't. I mean, it's clearly happening, but how am I supposed to believe this is going to work?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of comments here. People don't like. People think you're negative. I think Max and I are at the point where I think there's some realism in this, and it's, to me, it's not good news that half these teams are going to go away, right? It's not good news that these players. My question, and I was talking with one of the guys last night. It's like, what do I do, right? Am I going to Canada? Am I going here? Am I going there? I mean, do you think that? Do we redraft the leftover players to the other 8 teams? What do you like? We're so full now. We've done showcases. We've done all this stuff. Like, what happens to those guys?
Well, I mean, you'd have to think there'd be a dispersal draft. Yeah, I mean, otherwise you're giving up all the top talent from your other teams and just saying, oh, we're just going to keep our teams as they are. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, obviously, if you want to infuse talent back into the teams that are left, you're going to take the top players from all the teams that are left and then cut out all the bottom guys. And that might result in a 10% better football product, but it sure is going to be heartbreaking for those other guys whenever they got nowhere to go. And maybe, technically, maybe they end up in the Arena League. Maybe that actually ends up being serious. You never know. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to pay. It's still not ideal.
Yeah, I saw a tweet about that as well. I don't know if that was Mark or someone, like, oh, well, now this means collectively we're, they're going to have more resources, right? Bigger rosters or more money. I don't think that's necessarily, and I don't know if we talked about that on the last stream. Like, I don't see, it was kind of like when the AAF went away and Vince McMahon with XFL 2020 was like, I think the quote was, why should we pay these players more? Like, there's no competition. Like, I see wages staying the same. Certainly, I don't see that increasing.
I hope they can give them as much money as the XFL was giving them, while keeping some of the extra benefits coverage the USFL had in a couple small areas, and that they can work out something with the union. But yeah, I'm not expecting a pay increase at all, or a roster size increase. I'm hoping they stick with the XFL roster size and they don't decide to go down to the USFL roster size, because that would be quite upsetting.
I have a bigger question here, but first off, in terms of the union, and we talked about, like, how are they? One of the players I was talking to said, we have they were USFL. Excuse me. They said, there's protections in place, right, with our CBA and all of that, and obviously the XFL voted not to be on this, not to unionize last year. I'm just curious how that's going to work with where you have these two entities coming together and part have protections. I don't know what that looks like.
I don't think you can have it where part of them have protection. I think they're going to have to decide whether to unionize the whole league or abandon the union. I don't know how you could have a union for 3/8 of the league. It doesn't make any sense. That would just create a nightmare for agents and for players and for it would be bad for everyone if the whole league. It must be either the whole league is unionized or nobody's unionized. There's no other way for this to work.
I was thinking about this last night when I was getting the news that this was coming today. So right, we've talked, and the XFL lost all this money, and we can go into the USFL did make money, they didn't make money. I mean, I have my thoughts on that with bookkeeping, and we talked about that. But if we're doing this model, right? So presumably we're doing the XFL. We got the Arlington. Mark Thompson's talking about training camp in Texas. We're doing we're going to the cities, right? Like, how does that save a lot of money? Like, where is the cost savings here from what the XFL did last time? Is it just, well, we don't have to fly to Seattle and pay Lumen Field, right? We don't have to go to Cashman. That wasn't costing a lot. Like, we can bus the players in Texas. We can do that. Like, where is the cost savings here?
The cost savings is going to be in however they can do the wrangling that Fox did, where they have, oh, this is someone we already hired, and now they're just going to do double duty for the UFL or whatever they name this new league, because apparently they don't want to keep an established brand. They just want to start over, whatever. And then On top of that, you have the ability for all your Fox games. You can now own your advertising revenue directly. So if half of them are on Fox, that's a significant revenue increase for the new league compared to not owning it at all. And then you still get your production costs covered from the ESPN side, plus whatever incentives you can hang on to from that deal. So you can get a little bit more revenue that way, or maybe even a lot of it, I guess, because that's probably the main reason the USFL turned a profit from the revenue side, quote unquote, is because they were counting Fox's revenue as their own revenue. But I mean, outside of that, it's probably really not going to be a massive cost cut down outside of how they can find to have even less employees, right? Or have even less office space or whatever.
Because I'm trying to figure that out, right? And obviously we don't have a look at the books, but if this is just the XFL business model and getting rid of some of the maybe poorer performing teams. I mean, Seattle was fine, but like we talked about it, the cost for that and everything else. I don't know. To me, that feels it just doesn't feel like there's enough to be done there to go through all these hoops to get to that point.
The only thing, I mean, like I said, the only way this really pays off is if they decide to say, hey, we're going to cut off the weakest of the bunch, and then we're going to put our foot down and actually be serious with whoever we have left. If they do all the local marketing they need to do, if they do the national marketing, even on this tight timeline, I mean, I don't think the numbers are going to be explosive or anything, but at least we can say, hey, they tried, they're being respectable, they're building something.
I have a comment here from Blake. Is UFL confirmed? Is 18s confirmed unless it's directly from the league? I agree with you. Absolutely. And we've got scrutiny on all this. This is the same that I had heard going back to when I landed in Canada, whenever that was for the Grey Cup stuff. I was sitting at the reporter's suite that night and got this message. And it was conveyed to me that, hey, look, none of these reports that have gone out, none of the Neil Stratton stuff, none of everything have talked about this. Like, it's because, they didn't know what was going on and This was echoed again to me yesterday. And obviously Mike has his sourcing as well. So this feels as close as we have at this point, but obviously everything's with a grain of salt. We do know the March 30th and we do know the official finalization.
Yeah. And I mean, it's fair to be skeptical about anything at this point, and also skeptical about how much any of this new name nonsense is going to work. I keep thinking about the Katie Nolan clip from when she talked about the UFL when she did the spring football segment on her Always Late show like 5 years ago.
Oh yeah,
that was hilarious. But I'll have to go fetch that because it's unlisted, but I still have it saved because I knew I was going to want to reference that video again.
What else? We have Kyle. No, that it won't be starting after the week after the Super Bowl, March 30th, and that's per rest and everything else. We have everything on that. We had a comment here about Scott, and Scott has been messaging me a lot about this. More teams likely to be added in 2025 and beyond. They're on pause. That's where I just have trouble with all of this. And you're asking a lot of faith with everybody. I know, we don't want to be negative Nancy too much on here, but ask the Tampa Bay Bandits, ask that fan base how that's working. It's when you put things on pause, you're out, you're shaking your head here, Max.
Yeah. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, first off, for 2025 in particular. But second off, why would you divert your whole goal of the whole time has been cutting costs? You're not going to get profitability with whatever new setup you have out the gate right away. So why are you going to divert your attention from building up the leagues, the teams you're actually planning on keeping, to then add more teams and then add more costs, and then you're going to sink yourself in deeper before you've even built up what you already had? I don't think we're getting any more teams until they can prove they can keep an 8-team league running smoothly and actually making money and all that. I just don't see why you would do that.
Yeah, Justin pointing out here. Yeah, Seattle's the big savings, but again, this is a lot of hoop jumping to save some stadium leases and stuff. Like you said, there must be more cost savings rolled into them, being able to control the content going to the consumer and all of that. But it feels like I don't know. Like I said, it feels like it's a little bit wonky at this point.
Yeah, I really think the main reason, if they're serious, which I don't think they are, but if they are serious about actually trying to make something real, then it's going to be because they want to start over and they just feel like there's too much of a negative perception around some of the bottom of their teams or the teams that never had stadium leases. So let's just start anew. And that's if you're optimistic and you believe they're actually going to build a serious football league.
Yeah, Elusive Poet on here says 2025 is too early. Give them 3 to 5 years. XFL got 1 year under their belt here. I mean, this is, and they're, and I like more comments about expansion and videos about expansion and articles about expansion. Like, we can't even get through one of these things without feeling halfway decent about it.
I don't get the point of expanding if you can't even build a league that works with what you already started with. I know MLS did something like that, but they had like billions of dollars of capital and belief and funding, and also they had like the unique advantages of owning the rights to the U.S. national team marketing rights. That was how they got owners in the door. There's no unique special advantage to investing in the XFL. Like, there's no secret backdoor advantage to that. So I'm not like an expansion anytime soon.
We have another comment here. I got some more highlighted. I'm a bit disappointed, but I think it's the best viable option versus the Fan Dream option. So I'm hopeful that coming together gives them a solid base with more resources and progress moving forward. So, and I agree here. I mean, certainly we saw the opposite of this. So I think that this was bound to happen. And we had said, obviously, originally when all this stuff was reported that like we expected this down the road, but certainly not in year 2 of the XFL.
Yeah, I mean, I expected it down the road before they all started. I thought one league was just going to decide, we'll just take from the other. But what ended up happening is that both of them were run so poorly in different ways that they just kind of cut off all of their bad parts from each other and said, we'll give it our best shot with whatever was good, maybe a little good. I don't know how good some of this is. Some of these teams are still we're not doing so hot, but better, and we'll try again. They had to.
We have a comment here. Andy here has got expansion will be based on owners. Does this feel like this? But I mean, does this feel like a stopgap now? We talked about this last time and kind of passing along this baby, and now we're getting to this point. Like we're just hot potatoing to get to someone to take over some of these expenses. Does this feel like a bridge now to getting people involved in terms of getting ownership on there?
I don't know how this merger is going to make people want to be involved. What's going to make people want to be involved is that they can see you're actually getting real traction and real fans. So if you're going to do that and you get them, then you'll get owners. But until then, people are just going to look at you like, oh, that's that football league that people only kind of care about and the owners don't even care about. So why would I want to buy into someone like that?
Arthur hopping on here asking, what's the name of the league? Mike Mitchell reporting going to be the UFL. That's similar to what I've heard. We've seen the trademarks filed and all of that. A lot of people watching right now. Hopefully you can like and subscribe. If you're not, I imagine most people joining us right now. But we have like 100 people watching, Max. Not too bad for like him and Han around here for an hour and a half trying to figure out what we wanted to do. So I appreciate everyone joining. But yeah, like and subscribe on that. I did have a funny, this was just funny on here from Coach sipping Jamba Juice out of shot. Anyone still remember Doug Felice saying the USFL will compete with the NFL in a few years? I'm still wondering who the hell told him that. And then like that video was pulled down immediately.
It's a clown show. It really is. I mean, I think we've known for a long time with these new leagues, everything's kind of a bit of a clown show with everybody up top. So, not surprising anymore. It's all a joke.
TP Joseph starting with 8 teams will fuel interest in expansion instead of starting with teetering teams and fan bases. It's tough to me because we've lived through this, right? I don't know what the like the casual, I can tell you like my Seattle, I've told you this before, my Seattle season ticket holders, like they're just waiting for their money back at this point. They're very over this. Like, I don't know what the casual thinks of like, oh, this is a new exciting venture versus, okay, this is, collapse of 2-1. I don't know what the casual will think of that.
Most of the interest in expansion is not Well, I mean, I'm sure if the XFL or USFL was viewed as serious, there would be interest in expansion. But most of the interest and expansion is really just the kind of people that are like love hypotheticals for like all sports. They'll be like, oh, realignment, Pac-12 realignment, everything that happened with that disaster, or the MLS expansion hypotheticals, or NWSL, or PLL, or NLL, or whatever. I think people underestimate how the virality of expansion content has nothing to do with actual interest in your league. It just is all talking about a sports league. They don't actually really care about your league.
I had a comment here, and then I want to get to something else with the teams. Abdul's got this. If it's a USFL, Xavier F. Lavage is the happiest person in the world right now. He wrote it out. He never had to get rid of the handle. He doesn't have to be bothered anymore. Xavier is probably very happy.
He survived 2 XFLs and still kept his username. And the other funny thing is now everyone's just going to confuse this league for the video game that's coming out, the soccer video game, which, by the way, has the exact same branding font as the XFL does, except their F is slightly different, which I just think is only going to contribute to the confusion even more. This is such a mess, man.
Still getting Debbie Downer comments on you, Max. Sure, that's okay. Max, the reason why Max gets to be a Debbie Downer in here is Max gets to get his butt up at 7:30 Pacific and stand by while we figure out going live. So if anyone wants to get up at 7:30 and stand by for an hour and a half to go live, you're welcome to come on here and share your opinion. I have a question here in terms of the team alignments and everything. We go back to even the original USFL here in 2022 and talking about, well, we picked these markets because these were the trademarks that we had, and they were the ones that were back from the 80s. And we talked at the time like, well, that doesn't make sense because, 2023, now we have these. It's kind of the leftover. There's no real thought or purpose than just these are the teams that had stadiums that worked out. Like, the 3 Texas teams, whether it's the Roughnecks or whether it's the Gamblers, St. Louis, DC, Birmingham, like, you're missing a third of the country here. What do you make of this alignment without Vegas, Seattle, without Orlando, like very south, very east based?
I mean, you knew it was coming, right? And it was kind of a necessity that they had to make it more regional, because I'd imagine having so many teams, having a couple teams separate from literally the entire rest of the country was just not going to be sustainable. So I get it. I'm a little bothered. I mean, I understand why, but I'm a little bothered that you're not going to have a Florida team. I mean, it's one thing to not have a West Coast, but imagine among football diehards, I mean, Florida is second to only Texas often, like Florida and Ohio, I guess. And I mean, Ohio's a weird spot sometimes to put a team in, so I get why they're not in Ohio. But not having a Florida team might bite them a little bit in terms of building a fan base of football fans. Although, to be fair, they did such a bad job in Florida with not only 2023, but even 2020 was really struggling in Tampa. So maybe they're just too burned on Florida. They don't want to stick around. I also find it funny, remember we're talking about the XFL ownership, how they had their 3 teams. Each one of them was like their contribution to the new league. And Danny's team is gone, and Jerry's team is gone, and the only ones that remains, of course, is the Rock's team.
To me, like, again, I'm talking to the USFL stuff, like, it just never feels like there's thought through of this, right? And the XFL had this already with the 3 Texas teams, and every single person I've talked to, like, why are there 3 teams in Texas? Like, well, it's because like they're going to be based out of there, and they can bus people and this whatever. Like, to me, there's never I don't know if anything, and I know it's hard, and we have a comment here in terms of them keeping the strongest fan bases. Where is it here? But like, I just wish there was more thought process behind that than just like, well, these are the ones that worked, and no thought of realigning or moving anything. Like, we're keeping the healthiest children, and we're throwing the rest of them out in the river here.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative, I mean, the only way they could have kept more teams or gone to different markets than what they already had would have been if they decided to start in 2025, because you just don't have enough time to build a completely new fan base right now. If you want to launch in 4 months, I mean, you're already, already the markets you're keeping, they've been strung along so much. They have no idea what's going on. Nobody in San Antonio. Here's the thing. Let me give you some examples. Houston, no one in Houston has any idea what is going on with this merger. You know why no one in Houston has any idea? Because they stopped covering this league months ago, first off. Second off, there's a head coaching search going on for one of their big local college teams. And then on top of that, in San Antonio, the big local college team is rumored to be getting hired potentially for the Houston job in college. So that's the main football coverage going on outside of Texas high school playoffs, just for example. And then in some of these other markets, you've completely ditched them ever since the end of the football season. So they don't care about covering this merger stuff. They're not going to talk about it. So how are you going to make these markets you have left care that you're coming back whenever they don't even know that you're coming back?
How do you think that, like Seattle, Vegas, the USFL, like how do you think those departments are going to handle the fan bases here? We're going to get an email out saying like, "Thank you for your support." Like, how do you think that messaging is going to go? Because to me, I don't think I think it's a lose lose. But what do you make?
I think it's emails and maybe a social media posts. I think we might get like how we had at the end of 2020, where we had the guy who was the Bailey or whatever, who BW Carlin. He posted the meme of the guy like putting his hand up and turning away. I can't remember.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal. And I don't know if they'll do the Jake Gyllenhaal, but I'm sure they'll do some kind of funny post signing off, and then the team will be dead. I mean, there's no graceful way to handle this, especially for Vegas. Maybe for Seattle, you can come up with some nonsense that makes it seem like maybe you would want to come back, but I don't know if anyone's going to believe you. The other thing that fascinates me, we haven't talked about yet, what coaching staffs are going to be kept in this league? Who's going to be transferred to another team? Who's going to be cut off? Like, for example, they just hired the Vegas staff. Are you really going to cut off the guy who you just hired away from the NFL? You're going to look so bad to the entire NFL if you hire away one of their boys, one of their coaches, and then you fire him before he ever had a chance to coach. You're going to look bad.
Well, I think that's a really fair point, because we've talked about obviously the redrafting of some of the leftover players, right? If you were on one of the teams, but yeah, if you're a coaching staff, if anything, we had talked about having like one person doing multiple jobs in our last stream as well. I mean, you're certainly not carrying over a lot of those staff. I know the USFL are different contracts, and I think there were the reporting that come out. I think it was Mike earlier had said, where the USFL, like XFL is a little more long-term contracts. They can get the USFL guys out a little bit easier. I don't know how you carry that over at this point.
Yeah. I'm assuming they just cut off all the old USFL staffs. Maybe they want to keep DeFilippo at New Orleans. Maybe they move him somewhere. But I mean, Houston staff made the playoffs. You can't cut them off. You can't cut off the Arlington staff. You can't cut off the San Antonio staff, even though they didn't do that great, because they were one of the better staffs at actually getting out in her local market. You definitely can't cut off Reggie Barlow. You definitely can't cut off Anthony Becht. You definitely can't cut off Skip Holtz. I don't think you can cut off the Memphis staff either. And then even Horton and Michigan, I don't know how you can. What are you going to do with Blevins and all these guys that were supposed to have a job in this spring? You just hired, and you're going to. This is all just depressingly messed up.
You gotta get a comment here, because again, you've been riding the negative train. Hey, that's a good point by Max. So there, it's not all negative on here. Badger again. I would rather have an 8-team league that works than a 12-team league that doesn't. I absolutely understand that sentiment. It's just it's hard if you're one of the. It's like what was that show, The Leftovers, right? Like, it's hard if you're the leftovers. You're wandering this path.
It's even worse than like the Pac-12 stuff that happened, where the poor Oregon State and Washington State fans lost their league, but at least they still have their team. Your team is gone. Like, you're done. This is over. And it's fine, like, in terms of from a league building perspective, to cut off these teams. What's not fine is how they went about this, and how slow moving they've been, how inefficient they've been, how poorly communicating they've been. It's been a little bit of a disaster. So maybe they can recover.
I got some more comments here. This is good viewership. Appreciate, like I said, like and subscribe. Get all this stuff on here. Another one from Badgerton, and then I have a couple questions on here. They need to listen to us fans. We know what we want. It's been my sentiment from the beginning. I mean, I think a lot of this coming in, and okay, well, we know more, and it's our money. Like, conversations years ago could have been had that would have negated a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I mean, we're at this point now. We're doing the best we can. They're trying to do what I believe, they feel like is a way to sustainability. I think at some point you got to take a loss on this. It's challenging, but any other thoughts on that?
It'd be fine if they were caring about sustainability, if they also cared about growth. Do they care about growth? You tell me. I mean, it sure doesn't seem like they care. I wrote up the entire fans' Bill of Rights document that was inspired by a league that did care about growth. And you look at every single professional league that isn't a super established major league, they focus on all of those principles all the time, and it works. If you don't, you fail unless you're like one of those like internet leagues or whatever. But if you want to be a serious professional, big time national broadcast league, you have to focus on like building a fan base in markets.
Yeah, let's see here. Pat giving us appreciate Pat Rafino giving us the $1 super chat on here. So I will tell you, I got on I never asked for any of that stuff. I've been watching the Kraken post show recap lately because we've just been terrible, and it's good to commiserate. Like, they're getting super chats all the time. Like, oh, thanks for this super chat. And I'm like, looking, there's only like 10 people watching the stream. I'm like, what the heck, guys? Like, I never get into that stuff on here, but it's fine. Question, and then we have one from Mike as well. But Zach, longtime listener of the show, what's the future of the show now that we know that there'll be no Seattle team? Will you still cover the league the way that you've been with all your expert analysis? What is it? My covering the league, my dedication to the league has nothing to do with Seattle team existing or not. Never has been. I mean, obviously, originally with the fan base and being with the Dragons, it will be how the league is operated and moving forward, and kind of what access we can get. I know what I've dealt with the USFL before. Like, I can't spend the next year and a half banging my head against the wall dealing with that. But if the rumor is true and some of the XFL staff are shifting over to USFL and kind of doing a lot of that stuff, that is good, but we'll figure it out. I had so much fun in Canada for the Grey Cup. It's really hard to kind of think about pulling back now entirely, but we'll see. I don't know. What do you make, Max?
Yeah, I mean, I think the access, as long as I don't think you're going to have Russ involved in this league and then decide, oh, we're going to pull away the access that we were giving. I mean, you can clearly see that aspect gave the XFL a huge boost. I don't think there's any way the USFL is going to win that argument, especially whenever they're not the guy running the league. It's not Daryl Johnston running this godforsaken league. At least there's one thing I'll give Russ Brandon credit for, is that he actually let reporters talk and podcasters talk to players and some executives and coaches and whatever. So, yeah. Also, this hasn't been said officially or by any reporter, but they're not going to base themselves in the actual markets. There's no way. It's still going to be it's still going to be Arlington.
Yeah.
Because they have a contract with Arlington, first off. Second off, well, the XFL side does, but second off, because it's just obviously more efficient and effective than trying to do 3 hubs or 4 hubs or whatever. I mean, I still don't understand how they ever thought that was supposed to work.
No, that's my understanding as well. Yes. I mean, that has not been officially put out yet, but my understanding is Arlington, like I said, we already have Mark Thompson tweeting about like training camp in Arlington, or training camp in Texas, but that is my understanding. And the XFL, which again, if you want to circle back to our conversation, like, what kind of cost savings are we going to have there in terms of that? We had another one, from Mike. Did the XFL take the lead in this merger here? The XFL teams appear to be 5-3. We'll see. We'll see. We talked about the Houston thing of it. XFL CEO is in charge, and they go with the XFL model of staying based in Arlington and flying out to home cities. It's a weird reversal from kind of what the understanding of the situation was from before. Correct?
Yeah, I think what they came to realize was that the XFL did a better job of running football than the USFL did, which I think was obvious from the jump. And then I know shots fired, whatever. It's the truth, y'all. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Whenever you can get a better audience with less exposure, even if it's marginal, it's just the truth. And then on top of that, generally the reviews for the quality of play was better for one league than the other. But anyway, it's not that much of a surprise to me to see that the XFL executive side is on top, but I don't think it's because the XFL took the lead. I think it's just the ownership group decided we can't maintain 2 executive teams for one league. We're going to have to, you can either pick and choose people from both, which I think they will. I just think you ultimately get to pick someone to run the ship. And one did a heck of a lot better running the ship than the other. And there's just no way you can keep the other one. Also, on top of just the way they ran the league, Daryl sometimes said the wrong things to the media and got the leagues in a bunch of fights and whatever, and made the PR look bad. And then he would admit how he was embarrassed by the ratings. Like, I get you want someone honest, but you don't want someone putting out a negative picture. Whenever you want someone saying, "Hey, we didn't do good enough," you want them to say, "Hey, we think we need to fix what we were doing," not be like, "Hey, I'm shocked and sad that we have lower ratings than the other league." It's just basically what Daryl said. He was like disappointed.
Yeah, are you surprised in that? And I guess we'll get an official statement at some point from the USFL. But Daryl seems to be wasn't like we talked wasn't in those like. That was the guy. I mean, are you surprised as he just go back to doing Fox commentating? I mean, that seems like a weird. He was such the lifeblood of kind of the USFL side of it.
Like I said, they had to pick somebody, and one guy did a better job than the other guy. Not that I think Russ did that great, because he did not, but the other guy did worse. So
that's fired against Russ Brandon.
No, Russ did better. They picked Russ.
You said you didn't do a great job.
Well, obviously, that's why we're in this position. I mean, would we be in this position if the XFL was ran so well? No, we're in this position because the XFL was ran poorly. Let's be honest about this. We don't need to run from that. It's the truth.
Mr. Downtown has a question here. Looks like an even 4-14s for the league. What do we do with the Houston? Because that seems to be the sticking point here.
I'll tell you that the Roughneck staff was more successful than the Gambler staff, and I'll leave it at that. You tell me. Tell me one reason why you should keep the Gambler staff over the Roughneck staff whenever they were more successful in every metric.
A certain mustache villain would probably disagree with you on
whatever.
We have a question here, David. By starting March 30th, 4 months from now, this merge league doesn't have a lot of lead time. Honestly, I thought they wouldn't merge until 2025. Yeah, like seeing how this is kind of rolled out today, and we talked about this from the very beginning when the official merger, like intent to merge, was put out, and we went through. We have 8 different messagings from all the we have the USFL season ticket holder messaging and the XFL season ticket holder and the players for the UFL. Like, is there enough time here to get all these knuckleheads to work together?
If they announced everything today, I would say yes. They did not announce everything today. They did not announce really almost anything today. Like unofficially, we know they've basically decided they just have to hammer out how they're going to show it, I guess. But waiting 3 or 4 or 5 weeks to handle like showing who's sticking around in your league, that's a lot of time when you do not have much.
I will say, we had a question here to get into this. I imagine we've also interviewed Mike Mitchell. I always like his insights. I'll do my best. Mike's like all of us has a lot of personal. Everyone's got a lot of personal stuff, so we'll see. I want to give Mike, and he's balancing all of this stuff whilst dealing with everything. So we will do our best. But if nothing else, we'll get the professor or whoever on here. We'll figure out. But yeah, the best working through that. And I know that this isn't even an ideal day today for all this to come down from Mike.
And I promise you that when and if anybody gets to talk to Mike on a show, he's not feeling too great about all this either. I mean, you've seen what he said so far publicly already. He's been lambasting them too. So don't think this is, oh, I'm just a negative guy. I mean, the people who actually work so hard to cover this league feel the same as I do, and I'm just somebody who cares as a fan.
Yeah, let's see here. It's got Dean Blandino say I saw a Dean Blandino interview today. They were ripping with him with Rich Eisen, talking about how like NFL officiating has never been at its best, or never been at its worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be fair, they've done some of their changes and interpretations have made it harder in unnecessary ways. But yeah, no, they've definitely been struggling. But yeah, I would think it's Blandino. He's more charismatic. He understands better how to implement all
I'm
this
doing my
stuff.
Mike Pereira. I'm doing my Mike Pereira impression.
Yeah, and just in general, you can't keep both, right? You have to keep one. You're going to pick the guy who was better than the other guy. It's the same reason why they're keeping Russ over Daryl. They're going to keep Dean over Mike. It's you got to pick one, and it's pretty obvious which guy was the better guy. Sorry.
That is okay. I wanted to make sure here there wasn't anything else on the Sportico article. Was there anything else from that besides the statement that Ben Fisher had as well? Anything else you wanted to get to on the Sportico
I mean, there's
article?
loads of speculation about what they have to do and whatever, but there's no reporting on
Yeah.
what anything else they know. Right? It's a whole lot of how the league already did, what factors made them suffer, what things they have to do with the union. It's all just opinion after that and speculation.
I thought this was interesting. Regulators, because there was obviously the talk about the downsizing of teams and all that. Regulators prefer more opportunities for consumers to enjoy a particular product or service in terms of them reducing. That to me was surprising because I know there was a sticking point on that.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising to hear them say that because they wanted to have more teams, right? It was the whole thing we were hearing about. But I would argue if the leagues got onto either entirely or 3/5, broadcast television and the other 2/5 is ESPN main, you've done the job of providing more opportunities because you've actually made the games accessible and not just in I have it way, but in I recognize, I know where to find that way. So
yeah, it says here it's not clear. We're still waiting on the broadcast. Not clear how the new entity games will be watched. We've talked about that and NBC potentially getting out. A factor that's likely aided the XFL's and USFL's proposal is the poor track record of spring pro football in the U.S. The XFL started and stopped several times. The AAF. It was interesting here. They also quoted Mark and then Stefan here with talking about the salaries and all of that. Yeah, curious to be, and we talked about that earlier in the show. Like, how does UFLPA different pay structures, different bonus structures. There's there's a lot of different things. I mean, we did the whole breakdown about that. Remember back with Andy here last year.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess. It's a spider web octopus mess. I have no idea how they're going to handle this, but they're going to have to come to some sort of agreement, or there's going to be, if they don't come to an agreement, there's going to be some sort of dispute over whether the union sticks around or not if they don't come to an agreement. Either way, this is going to be incredibly difficult and messy and frustrating and confusing. No one's going to have any idea what's going on. Oh, by the way, we're kicking off at 121 days. No big deal. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm looking here. We have David. At the end of the day, the purpose of a merger is to create synergy, something greater than the sum of its parts. I'm optimistic that the new product will be bigger and better. And then we have Scott on here. I'm glad Birmingham did survive. They will keep the same team makeup. They had great chemistry going on. I mean, you have to imagine, right? Carrying over the teams, redrafting the leftovers. I don't know. I mean, if you're players, do you cut bait at this point? Like, to me, and Pat was talking to our group chat, Pat Ruffino. If the promise is we'll add more teams in 2024, 2025, like if you're 28 years old, are you sitting around here for another couple years waiting? Like, do you just move on?
I think if you know for a fact that you are one of the best players on your team that you got that is getting rid of, you wait around. Like if you were getting consistent play time and you were performing well, or when you played occasionally but you were injured a lot, you were really good, or you just have a really strong reputation compared to most of the other players in the pool, I think you wait and see if you can get drafted in the dispersal draft. If you're not one of those guys, you cut bait, or you go to the arena league or the indoor league or NAL or the CFL if you can get lucky enough to get a training camp spot there, or you just go home. And I think a lot of these guys will just go home at the bottom of those leftover teams who got cut off.
Their PR Pigston. There's a reason they went to the trouble of changing the name. Just because the teams have been selected doesn't mean the coaching staffs or the players are safe. At least with Houston, I'm curious. I know we talked about that, but I don't know. You just think there's just a wave of cuts and everyone goes home?
I mean, I'd imagine for whoever players they don't keep, yeah, they're basically cut for not adding to the special draft. But like, you can't switch around staffs for most of these markets because most of these markets had effective coaching staffs. Oh, by the way, speaking of cutoff coaching staffs, Seattle was a top 4, top 3 staff in your league. In the XFL, they don't have a team now. So are you going to move them to Detroit maybe and then cut off Horton? I mean, the Seattle staff has a guaranteed contract and the Detroit staff does not. So you would make there's going to be all these sorts of conversations, and then obviously there's no guarantees, but for most of these markets that you're keeping, you need to keep the staffs you already have because unless you're transferring staff from another team that you're cutting off, you don't have time to hire a new coaching staff right now. You just don't have the time for this. You only have 4 months. Like, you can't possibly expect someone to hire a coaching staff from scratch in a couple months, then go and play training camp in February and kick off a league at the end of March. That's unfair.
Yeah, Pat's got to. Pat. I have that ready to pull up here. Just saying here, with 4 months to do a traditional draft at this point, we're getting very. We're getting very tight here. The March 30th.
No, there's not going to be any drafts at this point. There's no way. I mean, maybe they do
a redraft of some of those players. I mean, you just let everyone go and say,
"Oh no, you'll do a dispersal draft," but it'll be behind closed doors in a smoke-filled room. They're not gonna have time to present a dispersal draft. Also, that would be so grim. Could you imagine like broadcasting? Oh, here's the players we decided are allowed to survive this contraction, while everyone else is like, "Go home, you're done, son." That would be depressing to watch. I'd rather just get a press release for that. Honestly, it'd be like Survivor but depressing because it's serious.
I don't know. They made a new Hunger Games movie. I think there's an.
That's a movie.
There.
It's not real.
I know. Well, this goes into this. So DeAndre Torrey, right? He's tweeting out, following up on how do I get all this? Following up on Mark's article, to pretend to care so much about the players, make a whole 54th man documentary, then jump ship after 1 year when players pass on opportunities to come play in this league is crazy. Eliminating 8 teams basically destroyed the entire league. No one cared, involved, just business. I certainly share those sentiments.
I understand the sentiment, but I mean, is it that much better if the league, if they had 16 teams and it just dies immediately? Like, either way, this is bad. It's do you want it now or do you want it later? The knife's coming. So how do you want to take it?
Well, and I think what's important to me is I think to take the fandom out. Like we get a lot of comments on here. We got 110 people watching, which I appreciate. Like, I'm just happy there's more football. I'm just happy. Just be happy. I absolutely understand that. But there's hundreds of players in coaching. Like this is the end of the road for a lot of these people. So it is very hard for me to be positive about this when there's a lot of people going by the wayside right now.
Oh, no, I'm not positive about it either. It's just...
Well, but I'm just trying to justify a little bit of the negative sentiment right now. Like, I understand if people are happy, and that's awesome, and it's going to be cool, and, certain people are going to be happy because there's teams or whatever, but there's a lot of doom and gloom surrounding this right now. It's really hard to kind of avoid
completely
that.
Earned. The doom and gloom is completely earned. Even if you're a fan of a team that is sticking around, you have to at least feel a little, if not a lot, concerned over the fact that you still don't really know anything at all.
What would success look like in 2024 for this merge league?
Are we defining success in terms of raw metrics, or are we defining success as it actually looks like they're building something? How are we defining?
Yeah, in terms of like we're moving on to 25. Like we're getting another year out of this.
Okay, if we're talking about actually building something that lasts to 2025 and it looks like it's building momentum, like we said last week, local marketing. Number 1, has to be serious, has to be now. Should have been yesterday, but it's not. National marketing, more serious. And then focus on taking care of your fans whenever you start getting closer to playing the games, attracting fans, maintaining relationships with fans, doing a more serious social media strategy during the season, doing a better job of covering the league with whatever content access you have. Because it felt like we would get these for the XFL, for the USFL, it felt like they didn't keep United by Football in season 2, did they? No. So that was gone. So the XFL, you would get like these nice patches of content where you got like a nice hour long. You get the round tables in training camp, and then Jim Haslett, or no, not Jim Haslett, Rod Woodson wasn't even there, and then because he had some other stuff he had to do, whatever, and then you would not get any serious content for a while, and at the end of the season they have like one nice 8-minute video for like XFL and NFL, and then nothing. And then they would just keep reposting old games and old highlights. And I'm just like, I get that you're making numbers go up, the meme stonks, whatever. But you're not actually contributing to building interest in your league. You're just building numbers on a spreadsheet. Like, that's not actually serious. That's just noise. You have to understand that is just noise.
I do think it's interesting on here. I'm looking still at the XFL website, like, we got the Russ email and Danny posting, like, it's still just amazing to me that we don't have, I don't know if there's anything on the USFL site. Like, it's just, I hate this, like, oh, here we go. Oh, no, I got excited for a minute. No, that was back from September 28th. So we're still, you can see the up-to-dateness of the USFL news content cycle rolling out. Like, to me, I don't like when they're like, well, you may have heard on social media, or you may have heard, like, we're all in this world here. Like, this is it would be nice to kind of give out a streamlined message to all these people.
Just even a press release, y'all. Like, put out a press release. Come on.
I thought about it at one point and obviously now Seattle's gone anyway, but I did think about, like, I could probably do this and just write some press releases from my house and send these on. Like, if I just get out of the game, I don't care about any of this stuff. Like, I can respond to emails. I can forward emails. I can do this stuff.
I think a lot of people could do this stuff if they wanted to, but the leagues don't care. Like, prove me wrong, league. Prove me wrong. Make me believe that you care. So I don't think.
Yeah, Pat's talking here. We have 118 people watching this right now. This has to be over the. I'm trying to think of what we had on with the first one with Mike Mitchell and kind of all that stuff. But I appreciate, like I said, like the video. Hopefully, there's 118 likes on this video when we get done with it. I really appreciate it. Now people dropping off. I think we put this interesting comment, Abdul, and he's had a bunch of good ones today. I think we put to bed that both leagues lost money, which was confirmed, and the XFL made money. There would be basically there would they wouldn't be doing this if the USFL was in the black. I think that's kind of the sentiment of that.
Yeah, like I said, it's manipulating. It's lies basically in different ways. It's all lies, y'all.
But like to me, the problem with that, and I try to be pretty level-headed on here. And I was talking with one of the USFL players last night, like, and they go, hey, read, like, because USFL, like, because you send this out, right? Like, with the USFL made money, like, what's going on here? This podcast makes money because I write off everything on my wedding video business. Like, if I this podcast technically makes money because every single thing that's used for it is paid through investment videos. Like, it's not, but if if I had bought this microphone and everything and the StreamYard and everything else, like that's where I get into trouble.
And then imagine if on top of that you counted like your fees or whatever you earned from your wedding business on top of that, because or a small portion of it, like a 0.5% of your wedding, and now all of a sudden you really look like you're earning money off your podcast, which is basically what Fox is doing. They're taking a small percentage of their advertising revenue that definitely is not just the default on Fox plus a percentage, and acting like it's what the USFL earned, when in reality it's just what Fox earned. It's all lies.
Yeah, David here a comment. We'll figure out how long we want to go here. I appreciate Max sitting around here. Obviously, no one wants to lose their jobs after merger, but the league isn't on solid footing. There are no jobs for anyone. So I do understand that sentiment. Like, I mean, we got to keep this going here. So at least there's that, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think anyone who is keeping their job feel like they're on solid footing right now either. I mean, how can you feel like you're on solid footing whenever, like I said, it just feels like a clown car. Everything feels like we're in a clown car right now. We're waiting to fall off a cliff. I'm waiting for the moment when it all really goes bad. But I want to believe that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and not just a cliff.
David has another comment. Yeah, but Jordan, like y'all said, cutting teams in half loses so many jobs opportunities for players, coaching. Scott, do press releases from each city still around? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think you need to start letting people know if you're, we're selling 60% off Black Friday merch and Cyber Monday and all of that, and there's still not people going to be like that. To me, is the troublesome thing on that point. Like, we're still pushing one narrative, and then obviously this is very much going on in the background
because they aren't allowed to push any other narrative because the league refuses to have their stuff together. And
startups lose money. That's kind of how I feel on that. We have a good comment here, Chris. Thank you, Reed, for the great coverage of spring football. I appreciate that. Mr. Downtown, I feel bad for the office staff, social media teams that lost their jobs today. People forget the real people that behind that make these teams run. I absolutely share that sentiment. Like, and that's even when it used to kill me when I would see people like badgering the XFL or USFL social media teams. It's like, there's like people that like this people that work here. Like, this is, I understand you're like upset, whatever. Like, these people lost their jobs, or like maybe you got to move now, or maybe you got to work remote now, or maybe you got to travel to a different part of the country now because of all this stuff.
I think from my understanding, most of them like already were based in that market. But yeah, you're going to find a new job, and it's going to have to be much more stable. It's just not good, is it?
Yeah, we got here. Yeah, now we know why there was a 60% off on Black Friday merch. TP talking about players covering the various arena leagues. To me, it's I don't know. To me, the biggest one of, there's a lot of losses here, but competition always breeds more. Better rights for players, better pay, better competition. Like, we saw the darkest time the WWE had in my lifetime was when WCW went away and they didn't have any competition and they could roll out. And I love him now, but like, let's roll out John Cena every week and beat down. Okay, we move on to the next week. Like, having like AEW now, whatever people think about that, like, causes WWE to bring back CM Punk, to do all this stuff. Like, you only have one league. I'm curious to see kind of what this looks like. Is it, well, this is good enough versus like, well, actually we got to outspend or out compete against someone else.
What I want is to have adequate care for the players and coaches and stuff. I don't necessarily believe in this, and we need to outspend stuff, but there needs to be adequate care from the start. As long as you have that, as long as the players don't have to worry about paying their light bill, about feeding their families because they're earning enough to make a living, especially the active players. That needs to be the truth. One thing I would not be surprised to see if they really wanted to get serious about cutting costs is that they cut quarterback salaries even more than they already have, just to inch off a little more there. Maybe they cut off, maybe they don't have GMs or player personnel departments anymore, or maybe they shift around guys from the XFL side, and obviously they're going to cut down assistant staff, so that's going to cut down costs. It's just, this is all, so it's hard to feel positive about this right now whenever there's so much uncertainty, and what has been certain is that both of these leagues have been run quite poorly so far, and now they're coming together as one, and now it's like, how is that going to make it run better? How are you going to be a better operation because of that?
We have a couple more comments here. Yeah, if you don't like this video, it means you don't like spring football. I appreciate that. We had a comment here talking about maybe the IFA can pick up some of these players. The IFA
that league is gone, isn't it? Isn't that league dead?
Is it officially dead yet? I don't know. I know that Rick was really,
because like they hired Art Briles, which we're not going to touch about why Art Briles is not someone you want to hire, but you don't. And that league I thought was a total disaster. And I thought, what was his name? The scout guy,
Rick.
Yeah, I don't even think he's still there. Is he? I thought he left.
I don't know. Talking here, yeah, players. At least you have the AFL.
There's uncertainty around the AFL too. Like they were still struggling to get stadium arena deals, whatever, and there's uncertainty about when they're drafting players and how much money they're getting paid and what TV contract do these people have. Like, we don't know any of those details about the AFL. At least we know with this new merge league that they have TV contracts already they can fuse together into something. There's no proof of what is actually happening with the AFL. So if you really want to talk about uncertainty, the AFL is quite uncertain right now.
We have a comment here. I saw him post a couple times here. Mark, you guys are babbling. Talk real informative.
There is
Mark,
no real information.
Well, Mark, welcome to the hour 1 and 14 minutes into the stream. That the informative part. Where this is the question and answer portion now of the class. Thank you very much for joining. We did a lot of that stuff. We're getting in the comments now. TP Joseph, even the CFL teeter-totters with financial stability. We have to start somewhere.
Oh no, we are nowhere near where the CFL is. The CFL has built established fan bases, and they're out in their communities, and they're known, and they're beloved. The XFL is so unstable that their fans don't even know. Most of their fans have no idea that this merger thing is happening. And then the ones that do know it's happening don't know when their tickets are being transferred to. They don't know. They're completely in the dark. No CFL fan can say that they're completely in the dark about what is going on with their team, about when they should expect to hear things. So we are nowhere near where the CFL is in terms of an operation.
We had a comment here from Raw. 8 teams doesn't justify the merger. Might as well stay separate and take your chances. It's tough. I mean, I think it's kind of a lose-lose. I think we've seen how this is going on.
The number of teams is not what matters when justifying merger. What matters when justifying a merger is you realizing that there are things that are not working and you need to start over. And if the merger is the most efficient way to do that, then fine. What's bad about doing this way is that it's so poorly put together in timing and everything. It just feels like it doesn't matter that you're cutting down all these costs. It's just not going to be enough to build something. And quite frankly, the excitement was not going to be there even if you did keep all these teams, because everyone would be skeptical about what is actually the actual long-term survivability of this league, because both of the fan bases that have been in these leagues so far have not been encouraged by how these leagues have been run. There's no way you can be encouraged unless you just want to be optimistic for the sake of it.
We have a couple. There's so many comments. I don't think I've ever had so many comments on one of these videos. Junie, what about the people that bought season tickets? I know we've talked. I tell you, my Seattle people, we're waiting to get our money back on this. Front row, 50-yard line, twice defeated now, and I think we got to see maybe 4 or 5 games there over the 2 years. I mean, pretty disheartening.
It's obvious. I mean, it's depressing, isn't it? But, if I believed that the new league would be run with care and with actual attachment to whoever they're keeping, then at least you could sit here as a Seattle fan and say, hey, they learned their lesson. Do we think, okay, I want to ask you, Reed, do you think this ownership group has learned their lesson and that they're going to care now? Because you know my opinion.
Well, you use the word care, and I don't like to say that people don't care.
No, not the people in the lower levels. We're talking about the real executives who we can say with a track record why we believe why I believe they don't care. So
I have a good comment here from Blake. I got started as well. I will say I do not believe that anyone involved in this league has learned their lessons yet. I will not say that whether they care or not care, but I do vehemently agree that the people involved in this and the higher up have not learned anything over the course of the last 2.5 years.
And if you haven't learned anything over the course of the past 2.5 years, and how can I understand that you need to be in the position where you're not allowed to say that you think they don't care. But if you're those executives trying to justify to a fan why they care, what's the argument that they care from them? Like, what is their argument that is supposed to make us convinced that they care? Which is,
what is Danny and The Rock? Like, what is their messaging, or Russ?
Yeah, because so far their messaging has been saying the same, lines and the same repeated stuff with no delivery. So how are we supposed to believe that as a fan?
I share that. I think moving forward, selling season tickets, selling buy-in from people, getting buy-in, I think is going to be very, very, very challenging.
And there's no reason to believe that they're going to do it because they haven't. So
it's certainly going to be harder now.
And that's why I say I don't think they care, is because every single one of their actions up to this point has shown us that we shouldn't believe that they do. So until they prove me wrong, that's why I say I don't think they care, because it's in the pudding. The proof's in the pudding.
I got a good comment here from Blake. Honestly, I think casual fans are encouraged by the merger. Look at any tweets from larger accounts with many fans, and I'll say again, because I'll give your thoughts here. I think the idea of a merger, the idea of expansion, the idea like you talked about before is a little bit more. It's like I'm eating a pop rock, and then it's instantly gone, and there's not a lot of sustainability there.
And anyone tweeting about this merger right now is not a casual fan. That's very obvious. If you're a casual fan, you have no idea any of this is happening at all. Like, let's be real. No one who's a casual fan is paying this hard attention to Danny Garcia's Instagram account. Come on. Anyone who's a casual fans, I mean, I love Mike Mitchell. I want him to have the audience of a casual fan, but it's so obvious that obviously he does not have the audience of the casual fan. He I want him to have that kind of growth, but he does not have that. You don't have the casual fan. You have the hardcores. Anyone who's listening to the stream is a hardcore. Anyone posting about the merger is a hardcore. So the casual fans have no idea what is happening right now because you haven't reached out to them. You're not in their world. You're only in your own bubble. So when we're talking about casual fans being excited, do you know casual fans? Because I think you underestimate how casual a casual fan really is, because we're all hardcores here at this point.
Well, I think it's always been underappreciated from them, which has always surprised me in terms of just The Rock and being involved in DC and all of that. It's always surprised me the lack of kind of awareness of how hardcore this fan base is. And I certainly didn't intend that at the beginning. And I'm getting Facebook messages for, like Zach and everyone starting off at the beginning, like, hey, what do you think about that? Like, I'm in that world now, but to me, it baffles me that they've never gotten like just how hardcore this is.
And how unlike a property like DC, there is not a huge swell of casual fans who are willing to go along with the hardcores for the movie and then go back home. So, you don't just get casual fans by making a product. You have to reach them. And then you have to convert some of them to hardcores, and you have to convert the nobodies to casuals. That's the only way you're building anything. And they just have not done that.
Yeah, I agree with the casual fans, especially in the niche world. People talking about we need to hear from The Rock.
You're not going to hear from The Rock today. I'm sorry, it's not happening, y'all. Sorry.
Well, it's we have the Danny thing here, and then we can pull that up again because I know that people are Danny. This is the only official word that we have from the league. I know that Sportico and Ben Fisher, and God bless them for promoting, nothing on the site, and I don't think we have anything on the Rock's account. So it's
or the USFL for the matter.
Or
I don't think and we don't have anything from them either. And I mean, we all thought. I mean, I don't have to say we all, but us two were chatting. We're like, nah, there's no way we're getting anything serious. We just have to go now. So
yeah, because we had been waiting around here. I told Coach Sipping Jumbo, what's The Rock going to say? Well, I just think him sharing this same thing. I think that if nothing else, sharing the press release that was put out from the co-owner, I think at a minimum should be done at this point.
I know what he's going to do because he always does this. Like 2 or 3 or maybe even a week later, 2 or 3 days or even a week later, he'll whip out the Terramana. And he's in the bar. It might be the bar in his house, or it's the bar next to his gym. He's gonna whip out the Terramana and celebrate the merger. He's gonna do something corny like that and talk about how excited he is and for the love of football and blah 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 blah, and Player 54 and whatever, and then not give us any serious information. And it's just like a 3-minute video of The Rock looking super muscly with sunglasses on and drinking tequila and saying whatever the Terramana toast BS.
We got so many different comments here. This is crazy. Max, I appreciate everyone hanging on here. I mean, Max, you having fun? Are we doing all right?
I'm having fun with you. I don't know if this situation is all that fun. I'm trying to, it's like managing my grief right now. I don't know what stage of grief I'm in right now.
Yeah, this is good here. Allison, I'm a casual fan. I'm the one. I just like this show. I appreciate that, Al. And then, at least now we found.
You have one casual fan, Reed. Congrats.
This is fun today. I love when we get so many people in here commenting, because like we do our CFL stuff and we get a handful of people watching live and then a lot of people watching, but I love all this stuff. Chris, I'll take Jerry Cardinal, 1 sentence, please. And Jordan here, straight facts being spoken right now. So I appreciate that.
I mean, I do my best. I know I'm the villain for being negative, but I was extremely, you remember how I was a year ago. I was gung-ho, guns blazing. They earned my negativity.
We have a comment here. Yeah, Max looks like he's having a great time. But to me, this is why it's really been not only just scheduling and him being available, but it's really been important to have Max on here lately, because you guys and everyone that, like, Max was the die hard of, hey Reed, you see this? Redbird's working on this. Hey Reed, you see this? XFL, and like Danny, and like
I still am that guy, by the way.
yeah, but I think that this is a good welfare check of, like, this is what the person that was, if I can do this correctly, that was up here, like, we're tracking this down. We're tracking Max's descent into madness at this point.
I mean, I descended a while ago. The only difference is I thought I should believe when it was just denial. It was denial, and now they've proven why I should not believe in anything, clearly. And I mean, yeah, sure, you can be skeptical about a private equity company running the league. At the same time, it was hard for me to be skeptical at the gate when I was seeing how that same private equity company was running their other sports operations, and they took it completely seriously. They did not take this seriously. So it's just like, why would you break your own principles? That will still confound me for a long time, why they couldn't just stick to their own principles with how they ran their other stuff. And that's why I'm frustrated so much.
Football, I appreciate that compliment on my beard. I think it's Dorothy's come around to it. I don't know. There was a point of contention there for a while. This will get you fired up, Max. Millennials love the XFL, but ask anyone over 50 and they have no idea what the league is. But ask anyone and they have some sort of memory of the USFL. I would echo that sentiment, but I would say, but are they watching? Like, they might know what the XFL or the USFL is, but are they watching?
The numbers, the proof is in the pudding on the numbers, first off. But second off, actually, people over 50 definitely do know about the XFL because they were around for the first one. And when they were like 30 or 40 or 45 or 50, they were around for that too. So they do know about the XFL. And also, most of the people who know about the USFL who are younger, a lot of those younger people barely know anything about what the USFL has been over the past 2 years. They only really know about the original iteration. And the main reason they know about it is because you get these content farm channels that are talking about Donald Trump and how the 1984 USFL draft and stealing players and stuff like that. They don't know about the new league. They don't watch the games. They don't know anything. So sure, they know about the USFL, but they don't know about this USFL at all.
Yeah, Dov, whatever his face is, like retweeting like USFL signings is like, it's because it's to the to the NFL or whatever. USFL is cool for you. It's back and forth. We get a mixture because I know like Gregory will be watching this. We got a lot of hardcore USFL fans too. But what's funny to me is it's not the hardcore, the older ones. It's all the people on Twitter that I'm like, you're 20 years old. Like, what do you care about the like? You're just like diehard Fox Sports stands. Like, that's what I don't get. Like, I'm happy to entertain conversations with the USFL, like people and back in my day, like I absolutely, but it's all these new kids. I'm like, what?
Especially being a diehard fan of a team that's not even in your city. Like, no, you know who I'm talking about. Like the New Orleans types. They're like, oh, we love the Breakers. I'm like, what has the Breakers done for you? Ask not what you can do for the Breakers. Ask what the Breakers can do for you, because they haven't done a dang thing for your city. I mean, I just don't understand how you could be so completely attached to that.
Yeah, we have here the modern gamblers haven't played it down with football in Houston. I will say there will be I'll understand if it is the gamblers. I'll understand the 4-4 split as a way to make it, every league gets, all sides get their own way. Like, I will understand that, but from a every other aspect of it, that does not make sense to me.
Yeah. And also I just want to briefly add, whenever obviously everyone in this room mostly is going to care more and know more about this USFL, and everyone on the spring football sites and on Twitter posting about it right now is going to know more about the USFL. But we have to understand, just like the casuals, that is in the casuals versus hardcores, that is like single digit or less percentages of people of the overall demographic that we're talking about. Like, we are in a bubble, y'all. We are all in a bubble. So yes, you and your buddies care about this USFL, or we and our buddies care about the XFL or whatever this new league. We and our buddies care about spring football. We'll say 75-80% of this demographic has no idea and does not care so far, because they haven't been given a reason to care. So
You're being called Mad Max now. I like that. That might be, you wanted to be the substitute teacher. You might be Mad Max.
I can be all of it. I can be substitute teacher. I can be Mad Max. I can be producer Max. I contain multitudes.
David here. I remember watching the XFL and USFL games back in the day. We will avoid the Trump comment here, but I like Christian. I'm happy for the merger because now they can grow without competition and stay steady. We'll see. I mean, in the ideal world, this is what we're working at here. So,
yeah, if I could only be so optimistic about an ideal world.
Let's see here. Millennials, we got all that. Zach on here. Please stay. Your number one source on the football. It's funny after the season, I sort of disconnected. Zach missed out on a lot of CFL great content. So we have football fever here. Do you guys think the hub concept will continue? We touched on that before. The presumption is it's the XFL business model with a mixture of the team names and training camp in Arlington and kind of all of that stuff, and then moving forward.
Because there's just no reason not to do it that way. So, yeah.
The news we're hearing basically confirms that no one learned blank. I share that sentiment on that.
I also share that sentiment.
Let's see here. There is I wonder what the teams are going to be. Like I said, we had that, and it's worth touching on again here, but we'll probably get out of here pretty soon. Where's Mike's tweet I had in terms of that, talking about the teams?
It was the Texas teams plus St. Louis and DC, and then Detroit, Memphis, Birmingham. So the team, I'm assuming they're keeping all the team names, and then they'll decide whether they want Gamblers or Roughnecks, because otherwise you have to start all over with team names again. It's just like the thing that will confound me at the end of this day is why they spent all this money on maintaining brand names and league names, and they're just going to dump like a huge percentage of it just because they don't have the guts to pick one league name over the other. Even though they have the guts to pick an XFL guy over a USFL guy to run the league, they don't have the guts to pick the XFL name over the USFL name. And instead, they have to come into a compromise with the name of a league which already failed and was a complete disaster and is only going to get them flamed and is not going to provide them any positive momentum at all. And it's just going to be confusing to be like, oh, wait, there's another new football league? It's only going to confuse people even more whenever you make a new league with a new name. New name is not helping anybody.
Yeah, are you surprised here? And I know that we obviously talked about that in the stream last week, but that it is. I mean, Mike's reporting that like it's so weird to me that they're doing the new brand name. I
can't say I'm surprised whenever I knew that it was always on the table.
Yeah,
I can't say I'm surprised. Am I disappointed and confused as to why they could possibly make this decision from a logical perspective? Yes. I can't be surprised. I mean, we all saw the trademarks. We all thought it was in the realm of not even just possibility, but probability.
Yeah, I liked the RIP of the National Spring Football League.
God, I just, that name would have been so bad. I mean, at least the UFL is 3 letters. If you're going to have 4 letters and it's not US, it's never going to work. Just don't do that.
Yeah, David here at the XFL. Let me get rid of that. The XFL practice concept makes sense. The league has to market itself in these cities. You can't do that without the USFL game. I'm worried. I'm worried we're going to have similar sentiments of last year where, and I talked with Russ Brandon in the Arlington event and him saying we're going to be the first people in, the last people out of these markets, and not really feeling that way. I don't know, close, but like, to me, none of this changes that at that point. Like, I don't see this now suddenly making that happen.
It's only changing if they show us it's changing. Until then, we have no reason to believe it's going to change.
Yeah, because here, I got a comment here. I'll start. But yeah, to me, that's like, we've talked about this, but the learning concept, like the learning is not the number of teams, or like it's whatever markets you have to embrace that and you have to work towards that. And we saw that to some extent, like I think San Antonio did good, but obviously DC and St. Louis are kind of the outliers there. But the ones that need to work, I just don't know what lessons have been learned from some of this.
And all of that embracing of local teams and markets was done by a very tiny amount of local employees, while the larger executive base did not seem to care. So I love the small people on the ground, but you need to have the big weight behind it, pushing them and giving them the support they need, because they did not have it. And that's why it was so hard. You give them what they need, you give them the time they need, the people they need, they will get it done. But they have not been able to do that because they don't get it. They don't get that support.
So I was a casual XFL fan back in, I listened to Mark and everyone on the podcast and what's the other the Chalk Talk. Um like what was so, because to me what I found successful was engagement with social media. They would interact with me. Ryan was doing this, he did like his weekly things as the president. I saw them at trade shows. Like, was there a larger swath I'm missing, or what was so successful with the XFL?
They were getting out there in local markets. They were having events. They were promoting themselves. They were on the news stations. And I mean, I know the local news in itself doesn't necessarily matter, but just getting involved with the right people matters. If you're getting on the news, then you get attached to the newspaper. You get attached to the newspaper. You get attached to social media. You have to be in the market. You have to be in the know. You have to be embedded, and they were not. And that's why all this happened. And while in 2020, except for a couple markets that struggled because they weren't quite as successful with pushing with the resources they had compared to others, it largely worked in 2020 because they were given all of those opportunities and they took advantage of them.
I don't know. I think that it's not a, it's a money issue, right? And is it a not understanding that? Like, what is the holdback?
It's not as the worst thing is we all know it's not even that much of a money issue.
Well, that's my thing.
But it's not the money. It's not why. It's too much effort when you have so few people involved in running this league. You have to get more people, you have to get less people to do more because they want everything to be as lean as possible. Whereas the XFL of 2020 was willing to hire a deeper support staff and deeper employee base. Whereas we're cutting back on employees and support right now. So you have to be willing to have those people who are in those pressure positions to give them the support they need to get the immediate results done without having real employees for them to work with, which is fine if you give them that support, if you give them a reason to make that happen. Because if you don't give them the resources and allow them to make that push, then they're going to get scolded for wasting effort and time on something that wasn't approved. And that's why all these struggles have happened this go around compared to 2020, whenever they were embedded in those markets and people did care.
We have a comment here from Mark. I wonder if getting rid of the hubs was the compromise between the XFL-USFL only wanting 8 teams and the Feds wanting more. No more jobs for the players, but a few more local staff. I
mean, all these teams already had stadiums. All the teams are bringing in already had stadiums. So you're not actually adding stadium staff at all, other than maybe the USFL will get more ticketing and local staff than what they had in those markets. But the XFL already had a staff, so the only way you can make it work is if you add more. But that's not what we're seeing. The only thing we're seeing is that it seems like they're going to take away. So I feel like people also overrate this whole let's just have The Rock go do it and save us. Listen,
I agree. It's a bigger buy-in. It's a bigger buy-in. It's one thing. I'm going to go buy Canazoa. I'm going to go buy Tiramana. It's a totally different buy-in to be invested.
What you want The Rock at is you want The Rock at all the major league benchmark events. That's what you want The Rock at. On the ground, having The Rock everywhere isn't going to make suddenly people care about a football league. You need to have real people on the ground building real relationships with fans and with business partners and with the media and with the local government. You need to have these tie-ins, and they just aren't there outside of St. Louis and DC. Even San Antonio is nowhere near what those other two places have. And then I guess you could say Birmingham, but it's not. Those ties in Birmingham haven't translated to establishing a fan base. So maybe you can say Memphis, and then Detroit's been struggling too. And then everywhere else in the XFL fandom has been completely struggling, even the ones that are being kept. So it's aggravating.
We're doing all right here. We got Rock didn't even show up in St. Louis. We'll figure out here. Still getting comments coming in. We'll start winding down here. I think at some point if we were dipped too far below 100, I was going to say we got to get out of here, but we're still popping back up. Here is a good comment, and I love you. All right, Hustle, I love you, but like when you talk about the positives like matchups, we got we have theoretically we have 121 days to get.
What matchup? Where's my schedule?
We'll get to all that.
Where's my schedule? What players are on the teams? Who's coaching these teams? Why should we talk about what matchup?
This is the event day. This is the event day. We'll get to all that. I promise. Stay subscribed. We'll do all that stuff. We'll get Andy in here. We'll get Mike and Pat. We'll do breakdowns and rosters. We'll get John Vogel back out. We'll do all that stuff. This is what this day is for.
And it'll be great to have when we have that. But we don't. Yeah. I mean, you don't really have those things right now, do you, Reed? I mean, what are you going to talk about? It's all in theory. There's not even anything tangible, right? You don't know what's real and what's not right now.
Yeah, we know what Mike's reporting, and we can put that back up here in the 8 teams, and whether it's Houston one way or another, this is what we know. These comments are, I have life right now. I have 59 starred comments alone, let alone like all the hundreds that are coming in here. We have, where was it? Football Fever. Max is my spirit animal. There you go.
What can I say? I really care about this, and I'm just so hurt. Oh, one other thing I was going to mention. How do you feel about the timeline compromise for getting players to the NFL?
That's a good point. So we do have, and that is confirmed, right? The March 30th, that is confirmed, the Saturday, March 30th. Mark is killing me with these comments in the chat. To me, I wish they would avoid March altogether with the March Madness. So if that means April, is that too late? I mean, what do you think? Is March 30th? What is that? A month and a half?
March 30th is rough already. It's like already late because you're kicking off your league in the middle of that's like the Elite Eight, right? So that's like right in the peak of March Madness interest. So you're losing your week 1 boom. And then you have to build interest whenever people are distracted by the end of March Madness. And and like Pat's saying, also with the timing, they can't go to rookie minicamp now. That's what I was going to try to mention. I was like, hey, these guys can't go to rookie minicamp anymore. They're going to miss OTAs, So all the benefit of having the February timeline is gone. The only benefit you have is that, for regular camp, they can still make it early and on time instead of being and not just early on time. They can actually try out for camp instead of it already being into the swing of camp before they even finish their season. And already you might have some roster space left. What I wouldn't be surprised if they allow players to try out for the NFL during the XFL or not the XFL, the UFL season, and then come to some sort of agreement to release the player if they get signed or whatever, because that way you can have them fly out to a tryout, then come back whenever they probably don't make it. Because otherwise, I feel like I don't know how you're going to keep that support base, because that was one of the main arguments for playing the XFL, and you just completely threw that out the window.
Interesting as well, and I saw a comment in here. That's the first weekend of baseball as well. So not that I know people, Mark will poo baseball, but I'm just saying here.
Mark Perry loves baseball, from what I remember, but
just talking about the competition. We have so many comments here. Just talking about the competition of everything. So that because it's Thursdays, I'm looking here on the. Let me get this up on here. I'm looking on. Because that's the kickoff day. And I have something else, not funny, but interesting to share on Twitter. Just speaking of, we get a lot of comments and negativity and all of that. We have this tweet here, Madison with the USFL community engagement football ops. Just a big upside down.
Sorry.
Well, you don't.
Probably, unfortunately. Sorry. No celebration. That's not a celebration. That's me saying, oh, goddamn, this league is doing it wrong.
But, this is it. It's tough here.
And also imagine finding out this way. Imagine finding out via a tweet that you're probably screwed. It's all so messed up. And that's why I'm trying to cope by making jokes, because it's all so messed up. Yeah, and I'm not trying to make a joke at her. It's just the situation is so bad. Anyway, for baseball, here's the thing. Baseball is not a broadcasting giant during the regular season. They only have a very limited amount of national exposure, and it's all regional. So from a broadcasting perspective, it'll be fine. But if you're from a local market perspective, if your team isn't attached in that market, they're just going to go. They're probably going to follow baseball, even if they're casuals, because they haven't been given a reason to follow the spring league. So that will be a concern with baseball.
I'm just looking on here. So Texas is at home. The Rangers are at home. Seattle's at home. Not that matters. Houston's at home. St. Louis is on the road. I was just here. Let me get this. I was just kind of curious, like, and that's on that Saturday. Like, just kind of curious, like, what are we moving around here?
Also, the other thing that's a little interesting. Notice how the USFL was in a bunch of markets that didn't have baseball teams. And now the 2 out of 3 of the ones they kept don't have baseball teams, but the whole league is mostly in baseball markets now. I mean, I think it's like 5 out of 8 because you have the 2 Texas teams with baseball. You got St. Louis, you got Detroit, DC. Yeah, that's 5, right?
Yeah.
That's 5. So, and then the other 3, Birmingham, Memphis, San Antonio, don't have baseball. Well, MLB baseball. But I'm not too worried about baseball in terms of a TV problem. So at least you won't have that problem. And also MLS is now streaming only, except for like some Fox. So that'll be, even though nobody watches them on TV, but that at least that'll be less of an obstacle for scheduling compared to before.
This might win the comment for the day. Where's Chris on here? Pat Ruffino needs to analyze this and then educate us. I like that. Pat, get on this. Go analyze this so you can educate us.
The worst part is it's hard to educate somebody when you can't get the facts.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, what are we teaching? It's all an idea right now, right? We can't talk about what's actually happening because it's all what we think is happening. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, Texas Pete. There's always going to be something on to compete against.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo.
So and then football. Max, we share your passion. We care for spring football. I know that not knowing what's going to happen is more stressful than what we already know. So we're all in this together today. So
yeah, I'm so disillusioned, man. I want to believe again, but it's so far gone.
Roz got a comment here. For being such good business people, they seem to act like they have no idea what they're doing or how to run a business. Where's Vince? They need the 2020. Again, Vince bled money, but I think Vince understood the carny aspect of the WWE of like we're building the local, we're taking everyone into the that to me was
Vince bled money, but it would have survived long term. Like I don't know about forever, but like it would have made it to 10 years almost certainly because they had built that base. And I'll believe, act my age, when I get given a reason to believe.
Yeah. Royce here, curious about players who sign with teams not going to be there. Well, it's a lot of like intent letters of intent to sign right now, right? And it's a lot of like player rights being acquired, right?
Yeah, there'll be a dispersal. Like I said, there will be a dispersal draft because there's no other way to handle it. You need a dispersal draft. God, I need way more than a hug. I need.
Is it too early to pop a beer here? Yeah. Is that Easter weekend? Is March 30th Easter weekend?
I'll check.
Here, I just
yes.
Speaking of this, I just had this pop up here. This was just on my Twitter. March 30th. That's opening weekend for baseball. This is terrible. The spring league needs to kick off Thursday night after the Super Bowl. USFL not even play it. Well, anyway, that's all that stuff. But yeah, the March 30th thing seems to be a sticking point right now.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of. I really don't like the March 30th thing either. I would have been if they wanted to wait until the like March 3rd or whatever the first Saturday of March is. That I would understand because then you can get your week 1 in, and then you can have March Madness for week 2 through 4 or 5, and then kick off the rest of your season with nothing else in your way, and then you still maintain your week 1 boost. But now you've lost your week 1 boost. What do you got?
Oh, I just Jonathan here. Someone that tagged me in this tweet. So this means I'm a free agent again. XFL-USFL. I need more information. This is from Jonathan.
Like I said, the players are totally in the dark. I mean, I can't imagine they know anything.
Well, it's challenging because I don't have a lot of it. I mean, like Mike and Pat and Evan and Anthony, they have a lot more engagement with like players on here and just in terms of like building and fostering those. And I should do a better job. But like when I'm getting people like, hey, what's going on? Like it's interesting to me, like just how in the dark a lot of this is right now.
Yeah. And I feel like if you're a player and the only reason I feel like I know what's going on, even though I don't really know, is because I'm so closely following everything, like to my detriment probably. But these players, if you're not following every single small detail, you can feel completely lost right now, and you have no idea what's going on. And while, yeah, I mean, if he's if he doesn't get picked up in that draft, he probably is going to be a free agent, right? That's how it's going to be for a lot of these guys, and it's just going to be so messed up. And there's no communication. It's. I'm throwing my hands up in the air because I don't know what to say to all of it.
We'll do about 10. We'll get out of here. We'll do the 2 hour mark. We'll get out. We got a lot of comments to get through here, and then we'll get out. 106 people still watching. We have a lot of people wanting to buy Max a drink right now. I would buy Max a drink. We're all in this together. After my age, once I get you a date. So we have a lot of people wanting to buy Max the alcohol right now. So don't get too crazy.
Yeah, I can use something fruity and sweet right now. So if you want to give me
Easter
a
is. Yeah, Easter is March. That will be interesting. We dealt with that with the USFL. Right? Is it Easter is March? That's so early?
Yeah, it is. It's a little early, but I don't think USFL kickoff was during Easter because it was always like
it was.
Second.
No,
I thought it was like April 15th or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
wasn't that Easter? What was the April 15, 2022? Anyway.
Oh yeah, I'm getting the wrong Easter.
I just here we go, Chris. Marcos is a voice in the wilderness. I just got an email from GoDaddy. I guess who just won a bidding amount for the usfl-shop.com. This guy.
Well, there goes their redirect link. Anyway, I was gonna say Easter 2022 was April 17th.
Yeah, so it was that weekend.
So apparently, yeah, I guess it fluctuates. I don't know. I don't know how Easter dates are determined. I'm Jewish, y'all.
That's okay. That's okay. Anyway, we're talking about kickoffs here and all this stuff. Gregory, I knew Gregory would hop on here eventually. The winner of spring football. Welcome all my spring league brothers and sisters.
Is spring football winning right now, Gregory? Are we? It sure doesn't feel like we're winning right now. I'm sorry, bro. Yeah. I want to have your optimism, but I feel like nothing but a complete loser right now following this league.
They say here, and I wanted to get to this before we get out. The 18th is perfect as long as they play. In terms of the fan viewing on TV perspective, with having, presumably, right, 8 hot markets, like, is that going to increase kind of the visibility and what they want, right? Like, do you think there's going to be better attended that's going to look better? I guess is my point.
I mean, I think the ones that you have that were better attended will still be better attended. And then the other ones will be how they were or worse, potentially. I don't think, let me put it this way. I don't think the interest is going to increase on the national audience from just having fans and stands because the XFL already had fans and stands. It'll increase compared to the USFL. It'll be closer to the XFL level on the interest in national broadcast TV, where they were getting a considerably better percentage on ratings compared to the USFL from broadcast to broadcast. And then on top of that, there'll be that better cable interest. And also being on ESPN instead of FS1 will be really nice. Hopefully they are never on FS1 because FS1 is a total disaster. But overall, do I think it's actually going to increase interest in the league just by having this collection of teams versus a different collection of teams? No, it's just going to be the people who were more interested already sticking around, and then the people who were less interested being kicked out the door.
Correct. I share those sentiments. We had a couple extra. These comments are killing me. Blake on this. What sucks is Danny's IG post pretty much confirms we won't learn anything more for a couple of weeks. Left in the dark with more questions than we had before today. That is also a similar sentiment. I continue checking the USFL and XFL website. So
it's kind of hard for me to feel like there's more questions whenever I've already asked every question under the sun. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it certainly just makes me feel more completely confused over what is actually happening.
Yeah, Greg, we'll do the last of these comments. Like I said, we'll get out of here at the top of the hour. I love spring football concept as a minor developmental league for the NFL. Not as a competitor, amazing the NFL isn't willing to help push it for year-round exposure.
Well, they've already done this before. The NFL's already done the developmental minor league thing. It was not sustainable, and it didn't. And also, it was weird because it was in Europe, but it wouldn't have been sustainable in the U.S. the way they were doing it either. They don't feel like they need to do that. They feel like they can just let things play out on their own. And then maybe what will happen is if one of these leagues can never prove that they can last, then they can establish a more official relationship because now they're not bearing the cost burden.
Denzel's chiming in. This feels more like XFL than USFL. We'll see when the official branding comes out. I'm curious to kind of see. Do we just roll in? Do you rebrand? I mean, not like we keep. Let's say we keep the Renegades, right? But do we do any sort of tweaks on that? I mean, there's no time, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing is that the styles of these teams that are being kept are totally different. Like it'll be completely jarring to watch the Memphis Showboats versus the San Antonio Brahmas. It'll be so jarring to watch on television because the style.
I think it's fun. I mean, but think about the NFL back in the day when they merged, and I think about how
the style was. There was no massive diversion of styles and uniforms back then. I'm not saying it actually matters. It's just going to be so funny to watch, like how different. It's like watching college football where you have one team like Oregon is so over the top with their uniforms, and then they're playing Utah. And it's like completely generic style of uniforms.
Yeah, Mike asking about the game broadcast. I think the rumor was NBC's out. They won't be right. Am I hearing?
I mean, there's no substantive rumor that NBC is out. All we know is that NBC was not in Washington. We don't know anything other than that. But I am betting that NBC is seeing the writing on the wall. They're done. We'll see though.
Hope they keep the XFL kickoff rules. We're talking Sea Dragons here to San Diego.
No, not happening. Sorry, move along.
Here it is. Garage. The comments are coming so quick I haven't get them up. But I'm much a bigger fan of the XFL and the USFL because I'm a Defenders fan due to growing up in the DMV. Glad the Defenders.
And they had made the cut, right? I mean, could you imagine?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think you're feeling like you. 2024 UFL Championship game at Cashman Field. There you go, Cashman. That's your. I read that as Canton. Sorry, but either way, I think that's funny. Either way,
no, I laughed because it was Cashman. I mean, that is. I mean, it would be this league, wouldn't it? It would be this league if they had to. They just had to go back to Vegas because Jerry just couldn't let go of Vegas. Not yet. But yeah, no, I'm sure it'll be at one of the stadiums they already have.
If you could pinpoint, and like I said, we'll get out of here here at the top there. If you could pinpoint where this went wrong, like was it the Vegas thing? Like where did the XFL waiver here?
Vegas was just a symptom.
Yeah.
Vegas was just like I said, the problem was the local marketing. The problem is the complete lack of communication, the lack of commitment to building a fan base. That's the problem. Everything else is just a symptom. Vegas was delusion. Vegas was embarrassing, but the league would have, if everything else was working and Vegas was the only failure, we would have just kept going. But Vegas was a microcosm of everything wrong with this league. And you could say the same thing for the USFL with all their empty stadiums that aren't the ones that are the hub teams. So
just looking through here. If you have any last comments on here, get them in. We'll get out. Guys, still 100 people watching here.
I would argue, by the way, that this absolutely can, even though I think the AFL is currently more uncertain. This new league can absolutely be worse than the new AFL because if the AFL is run more sustainably and small scale to start, at least you don't have to worry about the AFL immediately going belly up. Whereas it really feels like this new iteration might not last 2 years. Yeah, and it definitely doesn't feel like it'll last 3 years. So
hang on. We might have one more tweet here to get to before we get to USFL PA. Here we go. Sorry. We'll get out of here, I swear. But we got to get to all this breaking news before we get out of here.
He's got to handle it.
A union statement on collective bargaining agreement and proposed. I haven't read this yet. November 30th. Yesterday, league representatives informed the union that the USFL proposed merger completed the antitrust review process with the Department of Justice. While an agreement to merge leagues has not been finalized, there has been significant progress in bargaining. Rest assured, the negotiating committee continues to work diligently towards the agreement on the key issues we received from player feedback, including group licensing and union successorship. It's been confirmed the first game of the combined season will be Saturday, March 30th. The overwhelming consensus of the board of players is that we will continue to inform player membership in real time based on information we have the liberty to openly discuss.
The only thing I wish we had from the union we aren't getting is when did those conversations about the merged league bargaining begin? we don't really have a tangible start date. And second off, what's left? If we could establish what's been done and what's left, that would be helpful for just us understanding where everything's at. And maybe you can talk to them and figure that out, or someone else. But that communication from their end would just help us understand where the players are at and figure out how can we support them in that issue. Because I would prefer this new league to be unionized, of course. You know me, I was staunchly at the end of the year last year, even though I was everything I had, I was more XFL. The one thing I said was that I was so happy the USFL got unionized.
Yeah. Well, and it's good. So there we go. That is, we'll put this ship to bed here today. There we go. Thanks for hosting all of this and getting through all this. I appreciate everyone. Like I said, 100 people here winding out. I think we topped out at like 130, something like that. Not too bad considering we kind of hemmed and hawed around here for a while. Be subscribed, please. Thumbs up. 98 people still. Give a thumbs up. Get this video supported. If the world changes, we'll figure out something tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll figure out something next week. CFL off season, and we got the Corey Mays getting hired from the Saskatchewan Roughriders, kind of all that stuff. But we'll see. It's a little nebulous right now. I'm not trying to be too locked. I mean, I like doing the Friday thing and all of that, but like, I'm not doing 2 hours every Friday. Like, we're not rehashing this tomorrow, if that makes sense. Okay. So if anything happens,
I have one more question before we end. Do you think do you feel comfortable in the notion that there will for sure be a kickoff March 30th, 2024, Merge League? Do you think it's really going to happen, or do you think, how much of a possibility do you think it still could be that it falls apart?
That's a good question. Considering how everything has come right now, it does give me pause because, and I am not in these rooms. I sense that there is still a lot of organizational distress going on right now. And even like today, as we've talked about and before, and not one instance of any of this coming out from the league has been in, what I would deem as like a suitably professional manner, right? Getting Danny's IG post, whatever. So I don't know. I think that a lot of time and energy has put into this. I certainly think they're going to try. 50-50, 60-40. I don't know.
Man, I'm like 30-70 right now because it just, you're telling me it is, but you're not putting any of the commitment. You're not showing me. You're just saying it offhandedly and then going back in a dark room for a month. And we're not going to see that. It'll be like Christmas, and then they'll start talking again, and they'll wish Merry Christmas during the bowl games or whatever, and on the Dick Clark or whatever. And then we'll get nothing again for several weeks. Next thing you know, if this is really happening, it'll be training camp. You're like, wait, training camp is happening? We had no idea this was coming, because even though we thought it was supposed to happen, you weren't telling us anything. I don't know. Even the most basic thing, I have a hard time believing in right now, which is that there will be a football game played by the Merge League on March 30th, 2024.
I have faith in that. What to me it feels like, and this will be my last comment, it's kind of like when you used to watch Survivor and you'd have like two guy girl, whatever, they're warring against or scheming against each other, and then like you get merged and you're on the merged tribe, and like you're still working. It just doesn't feel like there's a simpatico of like we are working together here. It so very much feels like, and again, this is day one, right? We're putting this out, but it was day one, September 28th, and here we are going through all this.
And they certainly aren't working with the fans, which I feel like is a basic rule. So if they're not going to work the fans.
Yeah. All right. They feel bad. You make good points. Ken just feels sad. So I appreciate everyone. Like I said, like and subscribe. We will see you soon. Stay tuned. Turn on the bells and all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.